Hello guys, how are you? Today we are having lesson number 9. Welcome back. Welcome back. Just a reminder, we launched a few new internships, mostly to our previous students that already graduated. But if you, for some reason, have a lot of free time and you don't work, or you just have a lot of time and you would like to start more testing, start writing test cases, start getting real-time experience, real-time on-hand experience, and you want to do it the same time with our classes, I mean before them or after them, without harming your studies, please, I will share with you an email of our lead, which is gonna guide you about how you can join the internship in case that you want to join now. Don't worry, you would be able to join it in a few weeks as well, but just in case that right now you have a lot of free time, you could do that as well. Okay, so I'm sharing right now the email, and just in case that you have free time and you want to start internship right now, maybe 1 hour a day, maybe 2 hours a day, maybe 8 hours a day, maybe once a week, I don't know. If you want, you have this option. I just shared the email of our lead. Her name is Anya, and you are welcome to write her and tell her where you're located. Is it Pacific time or Eastern time? To tell her which devices do you have, Android, iOS, Windows, Mac, and to tell her your availability. When you're free, when you want to help, and so forth. Would you like to do test cases, or you prefer to do testing, mobile, iOS, Android, web, okay? So just in case that you have the time and you want to join now, it's fine if you want to join just in a few weeks, okay? Don't worry about it. So just letting you know. And today we have very, very, very important class about Unix commands, ADB commands, Charles proxy, Android Studio introduction, log files, exceptions, crashes and errors, continuous integration, and Jenkins. It's very, very important class, and please focus. You will need it for the interview. Maybe you won't need it at work, but you definitely need to understand this terminology, and you need to understand what's going on, what are those tools, and in very basic idea of what they do and how we use them, okay? So please, please, please focus, and if necessary, watch this class over and over again until you get it, okay? So now I just want to welcome Lana. How are you, Lana?
Hi guys, I'm good, thank you. Let me even
for joining us.
you.
Good to see you.
Hello, hello. All right, yes, so I guess I can take over.
Yes, please.
All right, sounds good. So hi everyone, again, my name is Lana Levinson, and I'm a QA engineer. I've been a QA engineer for quite a while. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen, and today we are gonna cover quite interesting topics, in my opinion. I hope it'll be useful for your work, but as Max mentioned, you're definitely going to get, I would expect at least a couple questions related to these topics during your interview. So I hope it'll be clear. I'll be basically covering them going topic by topic, and at the very end of each section, I'll leave some time for questions, so you'll have your time. As a common recommendation, please try not to follow me and do something on your machine. Just rather watch, so I don't lose you in the process. All right, let's start. I'm actually going to stop my video, so no extra distractions. And we are actually going to start with Unix. Unix commands are very, very, very powerful tool. And basically, a lot of common operating systems are Unix-based. So Unix is something that is basically widely used all over software engineering. Usually, the most common case, basically, it's used for servers. But when you work, if you have a Mac machine, it's also Unix-based operating system. So you can use as commands when you work with your computer. Super helpful. If you have Windows, you can install Unix shell on top of it, especially if you have Windows of the latest model. So you can execute these commands as well. So we're gonna start with some pretty basic ones. Let me hide this. So I'm gonna open my terminal. Actually, let me restart it again. So you can open your terminal if you're on Mac from your Launchpad. You can just basically search here for terminal. Another quick way, command space, is hitting command space and just start entering terminal. And then here it is. You can just click in here and that will that'll open your terminal for you. So let me make it a little bigger. Okay. So first of all, basically terminal is something that you can use and you can execute your Unix commands through your terminal. So when you start, the very first thing to pay attention to over here, it's going to mention the name of your computer. And then it's going to mention the name of your user, right? So the name of your user catalog on your machine. Usually Unix-based system basically can allow you to have multiple users. So this part over here points to specific users. If you have another one, you're gonna need to be logged in on the different one in order to see different catalog. So the first command that I want to show you is open and period. I'm gonna hit enter, and now you can see what's actually happening on my machine. So what this command does, it's actually opening the whole structure, right, of files that I can actually see through the Finder, right? So it shows me, it highlights the current directory or folder. This is my root folder of my user.
I just want to let everyone know that you guys gonna get soon a document with a list of all the commands that we are mentioning here.
Max?
Yes, I just said that we're gonna provide you a list of the commands so you don't need to write it down. Yes,
quick comment, don't write them down. We're gonna share them with you right here. So don't worry. Okay. So when you enter the command open in period, it opens basically your user catalog, and you can see over here where you at inside basically your system right now, right? So it highlights the folder where I am. I am at my root folder, Lana, right? In order to navigate to another folder, we need to use the command cd, which basically stands for change directory. And then we need to enter the name of the folder. So I'm right here right now, and I want to actually go over here into this directory. So that's what I'm entering, cd and the name of the directory, cd dir. Hit enter. And now you can see that my destination actually changed over here. And let's open it one more time. And you can see that now it actually highlights the directory. I can just close the whole thing and open it again so you can, yeah, for better visibility. So it's right here now. So basically, what this period stands for is the current directory, right? So in Unix-based system, if you use a period, it means you want to work with the directory where you're at right now. So cd is a very powerful command. No matter where you're at, first of all, you can navigate back to the very root, like back here to the root of your user. Right, so from directory, from dir, if I want to navigate back to my root catalog, all I need to enter is just cd, basically. And now you can see that it takes me back to the very beginning. If I hit open, you can see that it highlights this folder, right? Another option to do so is actually to use this command, and it's basically leading to the same exact result, right? It's basically taking me back to my root catalog. Another thing that basically you could use when working with Unix commands is the commands to navigate back to where you come from. So let's go to, let's say, directory, and what's under directory? Under directory, I have my magic folder. Let's go to my magic folder. My magic folder. See, you can actually jump a few folders if you want to. So now I'm inside this folder. And now let's say I want to go back to where I come from. I just use this cd and dash. And it actually takes me back. So right now I'm back under Svetlana Levinson, which is pretty convenient. If you're going to use this command again, it's basically going to take you back to where you come from. So it takes you back to your to this folder. So that's change directory. Pretty powerful. Another thing I would like to mention is you can actually use cd and / to navigate to the very root of your machine, and that will basically take you to the core. So that's the change directory command. When you are lost, if you are lost, you can always, let's actually go back from here. Yeah, back to my magic folder. When you are lost, if you're lost, you can always try to look where you're at. For that, you can use command pwd, which basically stands for print working directory. And this command will actually show you where you're at right now, so you can continue navigating up, down, or wherever you want. Very convenient. So now I actually have a lot of stuff in here. It looks messy. I want to hide it. I enter clear. So command clear actually clears my window, my working window. What's important, it does not delete all your commands. So if you actually scroll up, everything is going to be here, right? It just creates basically another instance of terminal and like lowers you down a little bit. So that's what it's doing. Okay, so now another command that I wanted to actually show you. When you work with file system, it is pretty hard sometimes to actually navigate somewhere if you don't know what's inside. So let's go back.
Lana, can I ask you a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
I just see that some people are confused and they don't understand why do we need Unix for. Can you share a few words?
Yeah, sure. So basically, Unix is something that you can use to navigate among the file system. Usually, it's used more on like servers if you have to work with servers, or if you need to pull some sort of files from somewhere. So that's where you will need those commands. And during the interview, it is a pretty common question. If you basically like can be given a computer, and your interviewer can say, "Hey, so I have this file that is under this folder," and he can or she can actually ask you to navigate somewhere. So that's why basically we're covering this very basic commands.
Also, as I know, many times in the test cases, one of the steps can have, you can have a test step that's going to be run certain command.
Yes, absolutely correct. So in order to basically reproduce something, you will have to execute the command first and then verify the results. Also very common. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max. Cool. So let's move on. Let's say we're in the file system, like we are at right now, and we actually don't really know what's inside every of these folders, but we need to somehow navigate it. So let's go back. I'm gonna go, I went basically to my parent directory. From here, it's dir, right here. So I am currently right here. And now I wanna see what is there inside this folder. In order to do so, I enter the command ls, which basically will list everything. So you can see that it actually shows my file, which is right here, my file. It also shows my magic folder, my folder. And then it shows another file text, right? So it's right here. Now, as you can probably see over here, I also have a hidden folder. So hidden folder wasn't shown. But if you want to see them, it's also possible. In order to do so, just enter lsa, and that will basically display you everything you have. So you can see that I actually have another hidden file over here, hidden folder, and all the files. So list A stands for all, will actually display you all the files that you have inside a certain directory, which is pretty convenient. So another thing that is probably worth mentioning here is that there is an option to actually list your files in this more readable format, right, with more details. For that, you enter ls-l, and that will actually show you the list. So you can see the same, my file, my folder, another file, and so on. If you want to show all of it, including hidden ones, just enter A. And now you can see that it actually also includes my hidden folders and hidden file. Quick comment about Linux. If you basically work with keys like this, in Linux-based system, you can actually combine the keys. So you can basically execute them together, and it's going to have the same results. So ls, la, right? I'm just combining these two keys. Should lead to the same exact result. So let's hit enter, and we can see that it basically prints everything out for us in this very readable format. But it's just shorter. That's basically how you can work with it. So not always you know these keys, right? Usually people know like common ones, like how to show all of it. But sometimes when you work with Linux, you actually can forget something. And for that, Linux has a very important feature. It's a manual. So in order to, let me clear my window. So in order to actually access the manual, you need to enter command-man, and then the command that you forgot the key for, let's say ls. And that will actually open the manual for us and will list everything that you can use with this command. So let's say here is our A, right? And you can see that it actually shows all the hidden directories, right? Let's find another one that we were using. -L, lists in a long format, and so on and so on. All these keys you can actually use. Most of them you can combine together. So this is very helpful. And in order to exit it, just hit Q, and then you're back to where you start. The same thing we can do with the command that we tried before. And look at the manual for cd command, which is the change directory. And we can actually look over here through all the documentation. So pretty convenient. When you work with basically Linux-based systems, sometimes you need to be able to create files, which is also possible to do through your terminal. So we are currently at the directory. And let's say over here, I actually wanted to create a file, right? So I have my file here and I have a test here. So I want to create another file. For this, I need to enter command touch. And then after that, just the name of the file that I want to create. I'm going to call it new file. And I don't know, let's say 1. And the extension, for example, let's make it HTML. It doesn't matter. It can be anything. And you can see right here, the minute I hit enter here, over here, you can see actually the new file that just popped up. And that's basically the result of command and touch. So you can basically command it. You can basically create it from your command line. Another thing that you probably worth mentioning here, from this tool, you can also create the folders as well. And in order to do so, you basically say mkdir, which basically make directory, and enter the directory name for your folder, right? So let's say test folder. And you can see that it actually creates the directory right here. So what's important to mention over here, when you basically try to create some sort of a file or directory, try to avoid the spaces, because let's try to create something with a space. Let's say we want to create new file and enter extension, let's say, same, let's keep it HTML, right? If I enter touch new file HTML and hit enter, you can see that over here, actually it creates two things. First of all, it creates this file without any extension, and then it creates the file HTML, right? So touch command treats this as two separate things. Therefore, if you really need to have a file that has a space in its name, right, just enter its name in the quotation mark, and now you can actually see that it appeared right here and it has a space in its name. I would recommend you to basically avoid these kind of things, because then it's a little bit harder to actually navigate and work with these files. So it's a common practice when you create something, just use the underscore over here and replace this with basically space instead of space. Don't name files with a space, because then it basically overcomplicates things when you need to navigate to them. So those are the very, very basic commands for Unix-based system. I hope they're clear. Let's actually look at what else we have and see. So we covered print working directory, change directory, list, touch. And another thing that I actually wanted to mention over here is the way to remove a file or the way to remove directory. So let's go back here to our terminal. And let's say you want to remove the directory that you just created. Where was it? It was test folder, right? So in order to remove a directory, all you need to enter is actually rmdir and the name of your folder, test folder, right? And now you can see that this directory has disappeared from here. What's important to notice that this command will work like this if your directory is empty. I'm sorry. So if your folder is empty, rmdir will remove it. If your directory has some files in there, this command will actually return an error. So if you try to delete a folder that has files in there, just make sure to also delete files in that folder. Right? In order to delete a file, all you need to do is enter the command rm, which is basically remove, and enter the name of your file. Let's use, which one? Let's use this one, new file one. New file one. I'm hitting tab on my keyboard in order for Unix to basically pre-populate the file name. So the minute I hit enter, you should notice that this file basically should disappear. So let's hit enter, and now you can see that this file is gone. So this is pretty much on a very, very basic level, how you can basically utilize this tool in order to work with files and file system. Again, you will need it if you work with some sort of servers, or if you need to execute the test cases that basically require this type of commands. And you can be asked during the interview to actually navigate from one directory to another one using just your terminal. So I would highly recommend you to actually prepare, just literally open your terminal, create a directory, maybe a couple files in there, and just try to jump around. Just use cd, ls, and so on to basically see how you can move the files around, how you can create, remove the files, and how you can actually navigate through your computer. If you try to do it a couple of times, you'll be relatively native with this. So in our presentation, we actually added this link with materials, and it takes you to this list of basic commands where you can basically see main ones that I just basically explained, and some other popular ones like copy and so or move files and so on. Another command that I want to actually mention over here that might be just useful for you in your life is the command history. This command will actually show you everything, like all the commands that you've been executing on your machine, like in this terminal. So you can actually go back up and copy certain command if you forgot it. So pretty convenient. Let's clear it again. Okay, I also have one question from Xenia. How we can get to the Unix commands on Windows. So on Windows, you basically need to install it. Just basically Google Unix shell for Windows, and you will basically see the way Unix shell for Windows, and you will be able to actually download it. So there is like some good tutorials on how to do so. It's very convenient, and I would highly recommend you to actually do so. So that's mostly it regarding the Unix commands that I have. Max, do people have questions, or guys, do you have any questions?
I think we can discuss questions at the end. Right now, let me see. I just saw a comment that never do RM as the root.
Interesting. Sounds good.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, please don't. Let's continue. So the next topic that we actually have to cover today, in my opinion, is a little more interesting and more exciting, and this is Android Studio. So let me close all this. And just quit it from here and open my Android Studio. So what is Android Studio? Great. Okay. So Android Studio is basically the tool that basically allows you to work with the code for your Android application on a very, very simple level. I mean, you can also read the official definition over here. It's a little more complex. Oops, sorry. But basically, Android Studio is the development environment that our developers are using to create the application for our Android.
I just want to add a few words that we showed you yesterday Xcode, and Xcode is pretty much the same just for iOS. So Android Studio is the same just for Android.
Yeah. So Android Studio basically is it's a free tool, by the way. So it allows you not just work with code, but it also allows you to actually work with things like emulators. So I would actually recommend you to install it if you're interested in order to basically at least work with emulators and maybe just practice. So I'm going to show you how I usually do it. So you will have some sort of understanding. First of all, let's start with the application. Over here, I have my own application, which basically on a very big level is just a set of files, right? So our every application it just consists of a bunch of files that are usually built, and after they are built, they basically turn into this nice application. So Android Studio, when developers work with it, actually allow you to build these files into an application. It has this this button to run it. So if you click it, it will actually suggest you to run your application on some sort of a device. And this is
it the same like installing application, right? Installing application on certain device.
Yes, that's correct. So, and this is basically what we call AVD. AVD is Android Virtual Device. You can access it from here as well. So Android Virtual Device Manager is a thing that basically can actually allow you to create some sort of a simulator for your Android, where you can later run the app. So let me just start with using the ones I have already. I'm gonna launch, let's try this one. And you basically will see what's gonna happen. So I just started one of the simulators that I already had created. And what it's gonna do, it's basically gonna start Android. And let's see, yep. And basically, it's like an Android phone, but it's not a real phone. It's an emulator of it on my machine, which I can access and which I can work with and look at my application and things like this, right? So very often, if you're a QA engineer, you can get a task or you can hear something like, hey, can you test this application on Android API level 28, I don't know, 25, and so on? And people get really confused, like what is API level and what is all that? So when you work with Android operation system has different versions. Let's go here. So Android operation system has many versions, 9, 8, 7, 6, and so on and so on and so on. So every version of Android basically has a corresponding API level. So if developer, let's say, wants you to verify something on Android of version 9, he might as well say something like, hey, can you test this on API level of 28? So don't be surprised if you hear something like this. Everything they want from you is to verify something on a device of a certain version. And here's basically the thing where your Android Studio becomes very handy, because sometimes you can maybe not have a device of a certain version. And then basically all you need to do is just hit this create virtual device button, and it will basically provide you this menu where you can select the device, right? I like Pixel, let's pick Pixel, hit next. And here you can actually select a certain API level, right? So if you don't have it, you can just download it. If you have it, you can just select it. If you hit next, it'll basically just create this kind of device for you on your machine. And over there, you can actually verify some things. Quick thing to notice over here is that Android emulators are pretty good. They are very, very actually similar. They're actually very similar to the real devices, except for Samsung's. Samsung's devices usually might be a little bit different. And if you actually go and look, let's go back, go and look at the list of available devices, the Samsung devices are not even here, right? So when you're testing something, you can really rely on this. On the other hand, if you need to verify something that is very specific to Samsung, I would highly recommend you to actually try to get a real device if you can. Otherwise, emulators will work. They are also fast, so I would highly recommend you to actually play with them a little bit. So now let me just close this menu. Okay, here it is. So now let's actually install my application. I'm just going to build it. If you have your device connected over, like physical device, a real device, connected over USB to your machine, over here among connected devices, you will see that real device. So you can actually install from here, like straight to your device. I am currently seeing this Pixel 2 of API level 28, which is this, basically the simulator. So I can actually select it over here, hit OK, and then my Android Studio will basically install the application onto my phone, and it will try to launch it. So let's see, I think it's thinking a little bit. And here it is. This is a very simple weather app. So usually it works. Okay, so ideally, this application should show you the weather. Let me restart it. It happens sometimes. Interesting. 1 second. Let's see over here. Maybe I have something wrong in the setting. All right. Well, let me actually try it one more time. Sorry. I'm just gonna uninstall my application and install it again. I did it a couple of times already, so maybe there is something cached. Let's just start with a clean instance again. Everything looks fine here. Oh, yes. Okay.
I'm sorry. I just want to add that this application that Lana opened at your work going to be provided to you. This file is going to be provided to you by your manager or someone lead in your team. You're going to send it to you, so you don't need to worry about it.
Yep. Okay. All right, let's see. So let's run it one more time. And let's see. Installing, launching. There we go. Weather again. Let's try. If it doesn't work, that's fine. We'll just basically won't look at the weather. We'll just basically work with it as it is. I broke it a couple times today already, so it might be a result of that. All right, so it doesn't really want to display weather for me right now for some reason, but it doesn't really matter. The point is basically that by just running play from Android over here, you can actually install the application on your device, and Android will actually open that for you. So that is pretty convenient. Another thing that I actually wanted to show you is developers usually they actually build it for us, and as Max just mentioned, they usually provide us with a file that we can actually install on our emulator, right, or on our physical device. So in order to actually generate this file, I'm just going to basically show you how it's done. Developers will basically do it the same exact way. Basically, all you need to do is just build APK over here, and Android Studio will automatically actually generate this APK file. So APK file is basically an executable file that is a file of your application that you can use in order to work with your application, test it, and so on. When it's generated, it basically looks like this. And after you have this file, let me delete this guy again, uninstall, yes, sorry, okay. And after you basically have this file, you can simply install it onto your device. So you can install APK file by many ways. One of them is just simply send this file to your device somehow. Let's say you have a Slack or you have Bluetooth on your device or Google Drive. So you can just send the file and then you can actually open it. And then you basically can test it. So that's a very simple way. Another way to actually install the device is to use ADB tool. And ADB tool is basically something that is very commonly used among QA engineers and can help us to work with our application. So let's move on a little bit and let's continue. Actually, let's see if I can actually show you one more thing before we leave this thing. So I am gonna uninstall my application again, okay, and I'm gonna launch it on my device. So in Android, Studio, there is this button over here that looks basically like a lightning. This button, I don't think you will ever need it really, like unless you will work with code. But in case developers provide you with the code, this button will allow you to actually instantly change something and then check how it looks. Sorry, on your device. Right. So I just changed the color in my code. When I hit this button, you can see that the color of my cloud is actually changing right here. And I can change it back to white. So that's that's basically how developers usually do it. Just for you to know, can be helpful, especially if you will get access to the actual code. Okay, let's continue. There was one quick question, actually. Where would I go to download Android Studio? Just literally Google Android Studio, and you'll find the official website, and you can actually download it from there. It doesn't matter if you have a Mac or Windows. It's absolutely free, so literally just look for it, and you can get it. Also, we attached the link to the official documentation to our slides. So you can actually just click here and download it as well from here.
I think that you don't want guys to overcomplicate yourself. You don't really need to install it, because the only purpose you need it is to pass the interview and to know how to install the application. And that's it, because we're going to show you how to. We already showed you how to install it and how to create log file using ADB commands.
Yep. Okay, cool. Let's oh, and another quick question. Android application is written in Java or Kotlin, in case anyone is interested in what programming language. And this file that I was changing is actually written in XML. I don't think it is really useful, but I think I have one question from Vyacheslav, so this is XML. Okay, let's continue. And here we go next. So, ADB or Android Debug Bridge, what it is. So basically, it's a command line tool that basically lets you to work with your application and your device. Right, it's very convenient because using ADB, you can basically control your device. So official documentation is right here. Let me open the website for you. It's the developers portal. Over here, you can actually look through the documentation. You'll see there are going to be a lot of commands, but I did selected the main ones for you guys because it's way too many, and we don't really use majority of those. So we have ADB commands, link to ADB commands on this slide. Let me open it and show it to you. So basically how I formed this document. This document summarizes just some quick information about Android and ADB. And then this document has the questions that you can be asked during interviews. And here are the answers. So question, answer, question, answer. Especially if you're going to, for like Google, let's say, this document is very helpful, and it will actually highlight the main questions that they usually ask. So let's look at the main commands of ADB and actually execute them, so you will have some idea on how to actually work with this. So the first command that is super important is ADB devices. This command will allow us to basically look at all the devices that are connected to our machine. Oh, and by the way, ADB is a part of Android Studio, so it gets installed when you install the Android Studio, or you can also install it separately. So, ADB, ADB devices. Let's open the terminal, and let's just run this command, ADB devices. So what it shows me the list of devices attached, and here it has the emulator, and this is this device that I have right here, right? So now if I, let's say, close it, and enter this command again, you can see that it actually has a list of devices attached and nothing here. So let's say you work with a real device, you connected your device over your USB to your computer, and then you basically enter ADB devices and you see something like this. No devices, but it says list of devices attached. What it basically means that the device is not connected, and double check, check your connection, check your user that it is working. So make sure that everything is connected properly. For some reason, basically, it means that your ADB doesn't see your device. Another common case that can happen here is that, let's see, that you'll see a device and your device, sorry, you'll see the device like this, and your device status next to it will be saying something like unauthorized. So what it actually means is that on your device, you didn't allow your device to be accessed from your machine. So you need to look at your device, and actually you'll see some sort of a message or pop-up that says basically, can we like allow USB debugging, and you will need to hit yes in that, and then your device will be authorized and you'll be basically able to use it. So what it basically means that your device doesn't have, like your machine doesn't have permissions to work with this device, and you need to accept it on your device. And another case that I wanted to mention is if you enter ADB devices and you see your device and it says offline. So what it actually means, it means that your device is connected properly, but you do not have your developer options installed, allowed. So in order to do so, just go to your Android device settings, about phone, find the build number, and tap on it for 10 times. So after that, your development mode will be basically allowed, and then you will be able to connect to your devices. In most common state, that basically means everything is fine, is the one that I showed you before, is basically you see a list of devices attached, and you can actually see certain device that you can work with. So now another common case that you will need to probably learn is ADB actually allows you to install and uninstall your application on a certain device. So let's take a different application because this one doesn't look good. Let me quickly check what I have installed over here. Let me uninstall this one. Don't need it anymore for now. And cool. I have somewhere on my desktop, I have a Wikipedia application. So, by the way, if you just Google for Wikipedia APK file, you can just find it on the internet and just download it from internet. So, what I want to do, I have this Wikipedia application, Wikipedia APK file, that I would like to install on this emulator. In order to do so, all I need to actually enter is ADB install. And then I need to enter the name of the file. And hit enter. So now you can actually see it on this device. Wikipedia app just popped up right here.
So just a quick question, Lana. This file, this wikipedia.apk, this file supposed to be in particular folder, or it could be anywhere?
It could be anywhere. What's important is that you basically running your ADB from where, from where the file lives, or in your ADB over here, you can actually just
put the path.
Yes, just put the whole path to your file right here.
And you don't really need to write it. You guys can just drop the folder or the file into the terminal, and it will populate automatically the path.
Yep. So now basically when the file installed, you can work with it. Right, let me just show you that it is actually working and everything is fine. So yeah, and our application is working. I feel like I have some sort of proxying issue, because it looks like whoops, sorry guys, because it looks like my device won't connect to the internet. But anyway, let's see. I think I have like a local setting problem, which is fine. Well, maybe it's related. Anyway, doesn't really matter. So you can actually see that this is opening and it is working. And in order to actually uninstall your application, you can also do it using the ADB, right? And in order to uninstall something, it's very similar, right? You run ADB install, and the name of your application. Actually, Arc Wikipedia should be enough, right? It says success. Let's open my emulator. Doesn't want to work for me today. Okay, and you can see that actually Wikipedia application is gone right here, right? So it successfully uninstalled everything, and that is pretty convenient. Let me actually do one quick thing and install it again and show you a little bit more. So, okay, so I just put my Wikipedia back, and now let's move on. And what I actually want to show you next is how you can actually check logs on your Android device. So in order to check logs, you can see the command right here. Use the command adb logcat. Over here, I actually attached a link to the page of official documentation. So adb logcat is a little bit special. It actually has a lot of options, and this command is very powerful. So I would highly recommend you to actually at least look through that and see what it actually can do, because here a little bit more additional information on it. But let me show the main things that you can do with adb logcat. So my Wikipedia app is right here. Let me actually open it. Probably won't load, but doesn't really matter. And let's enter adb logcat. So when I enter it, you can see that this is what's happening. Basically, it is loading all the logs from my Android device, and it's continuing to load them while I'm actually have my terminal open. So I'm just going to stop it for now, and let me show you very quickly, a little closer. So if you actually look in the logs, you can see that there is a time when a certain line of log was generated, and then there are all these letters, E, I, W, should be D somewhere. and so on. D, right? So what it actually means when we generate log files, every one of these letters actually stands for something. So I means information. So those are informational logs. They basically are used by developers just to actually record some information about the oh, by the way, guys, I stopped the log by hitting Control-C on my keyboard in case anyone has this problem. When developers basically make an application, you can see that logs with I stand for informational. So what it actually means when developers have some information that they want to put about the work of actual application, they put a log with I, which basically means, hey, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just an information that I want to store.
I'm sorry, Lana, can you share a few words what log means and why we need it? Because some people are confused.
Oh, okay, sure, yes. So log files, sorry guys, I thought you did the same exercise for iOS already. Okay, cool, sure. So log files are basically the files that we, that have the information about our application, and also sometimes about our device. Basically everything that is executed on your phone, every program usually generates some sort of logs, and log file is the file that contains these logs that are generated. So logs basically contain the information about the work of your application. So if everything is like, if your application is working, still sometimes you want to have like some sort of, like, you as a developer, developer want to have like some sort of information about how things are going or what the application is currently doing. So they will generate some sort of informational logs, right? And you'll see them with I right here. If there is an error, what is important for for developers is actually be able to catch this error, so then we can actually debug it and understand what was the problem. And for these cases, we also use logs and error logs, right? And these logs will go with E right here, and that's basically how you can actually see all the errors in your application. Also, sometimes there are certain states where something is failing in your application, but your application doesn't really crash or it's not very critical, and developers can put it in some sort of warnings, which is W. So
I just want to add a few words that, guys, if you feel that it looks complicated or something very deep, in most cases you won't need to deal with what you have inside your log file. In most cases you will just need to create it and attach it to your bug report. But in some cases they will ask you to look for certain parameters in different companies, so just be ready for that and don't stress out. It's much more simple than you think.
Yes, so don't worry. Basically, you will just need to have access to this file, and you need to know how to actually look at it and how to save it. And then all you need to do is just provide it to the party that is requesting it. So in your case, probably to a developer. And then actually they will be reading through this and try to understand what is happening. You won't really need to go and dig deeper into what's going on. If you want to actually filter logs, let's say you want only errors in your log, ADB has this functionality for you. So in order to do so, you just enter the same ADB logcat. And let's say you only want you only want errors, right? So you just enter asterisk, column, and E for error. And when you hit enter, ADB will actually automatically filter all the messages with error status. Can be convenient if you're looking for errors. I I'm not really using this very often, but I included this example for you because sometimes this can be asked on the interview, like how would you filter your only errors in your log? This is how. ADB, logcat, asterisk, and insert message, right? You can do any one you want. Another thing is you can actually use logcat to save some sort of log, right? And if you want to save your log to a file, you can actually just enter the destination of the file where you would like to save it. So ADB logcat. Let's see. Actually, let me do this.
Lana, quick question regarding the filtering of the errors. Is it like the best answer, the one you showed right now, or they also can mention that they were using the grep command in Unix?
Yes, you can use grep command in Unix as well. It's just this one's a little simpler, but if you, yep.
And what they're supposed to look for, errors, crashes, and exceptions? What is the best search?
Yes, you can look for errors, crashes, exceptions, and usually if there is a crash somewhere in the logs, you will see something like beginning of crash. So you will be able to filter it by that. Another thing is, let's see if I'll be able to find it.
I think, guys, that you need just to know what we just said for the interview questions, okay? Because at work, they're gonna show you exactly what you need to add and what you don't, and maybe you won't need to use it at all.
Yep. All right, and sometimes you just need to actually save your log somewhere. So what I'm going to do is actually save it to a certain directory, and let's say I'm going to call it log 1, right? And I just enter it, and basically that should collect the log and save it to a certain file. So then I can actually access it and see what happened. Let's see, open. Okay, so you can see this is my log file right here, and it basically contains all the information. So this is how you can actually save this onto your machine. Another way that I've seen many people are using is just basically copying it from the terminal. Why not? Whatever works. Quick comment, ADB also has a command bug report. And a bug report will actually generate like the zip folder with all the information about your device, and it'll be very, very, very very wide about the whole behavior of your device and everything that was happening in there. And that's actually another way to save all this data in order to actually provide it to your developers, let's say. So I think mine is almost done.
Sorry, Lana, what's D stands for?
What do you mean distance? Like this is directory, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm just asking the questions that our students raised.
Oh, yeah. So, D basically stands for directory where you want to save your log file, right? So I printed the current directory, PVD. I copied this current directory, and I entered the ADB logcat -D directory, and then I pointed to directory. So I entered my current folder or my directory, and then I entered the name of the file. So you need to come up with some sort of the file name where you want your logs to be saved.
It seems that actually the question was for the capital D. We have E for error, I for information, W for warning, and
D stands for debug. So it's a debug statement. It's a statement that will help our developers to actually debug what was going on in the application. Similar to informational usually, but is a little closer to warning, a little closer, but not warning yet.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay, let's open this. And you can see that over here, I have the bug report generated. And oops, sorry, this is not what I want. And if I actually unzip it, you can see that there are a lot of information about everything that was happening. And logs are also there as well. So this is another way. If somebody is asking you how to generate a bug report using ADB, it's a command ADB bug report. That's it. That's simple.
Can you repeat it again, because it was hard to hear the last part.
Which part? The bug report? Yeah. If somebody is asking you, especially during interview, what for do you need the bug report? I'm sorry, how to generate the bug report? You can basically say that it's a command ADB bug report, and that would basically generate a zip folder with all the information about your device's activity. So you can also use it for debugging as well. That's
it. I have a question. In
Sure.
Xcode, whenever we go to try and see the device logs, we have a list of different files, different logs that happened in different times, right? Now, in here, like in Android Studio or ADB, you also can choose the timestamp, a certain file of like certain timestamp, or it's just gonna be everything you had before. Like how do you choose it? How do you see it?
That's a good question. I'm pretty sure there is a filter. I really never done it manually, like by the timestamp. But
So if you never did it, probably we will never do it.
Yeah, here it is. Actually, it's in the documentation. There is T for time, right? ADB labcat T, and then actually you can print something from a certain time. And look, here is also an options for the interval as well. So it's very powerful. Like really, if you need to work with ADB a lot, I would recommend you to actually look through this. I know that people who work in Google actually usually use this a lot. I personally was pretty much good by just using ADB logcat or ADB bug report sometimes. And like as far as reporting bugs, that was mostly it. Plus, of course, screenshots and videos, which are also helpful. So let me show you how to do it. Let's continue actually over here. You are able to actually use ADB to record your current screen, right? So very often I see when people, like, let's say they have one device and then they have another device and then they like try to use one device and take a video of another device to record something. I mean, that will work, but that's not really good practice. ADB provides this certain tool that is a screen record that would allow you to actually make a very nice video of a certain error or whatever was going on your device. And in order to do so, is everything you need to do is actually enter ADB shell screen record. And screen record, right? And enter where you actually want to save this record on your device, right? It's usually some sort of a CD card, and the name of your file. Let's say one. And it will basically start recording the video like from now on. And then you can actually enter Ctrl+C, and that will basically stop the recording. And then you can actually pull your file to your machine by using ADB pull command. ADB pull, right? And you can see that it actually says one file pulled. And again, my favorite, open. See how useful Unix is. And it's actually right here, bug1 MP4. It's the video that I saved. We can actually just open it, make sure this is exactly how it looks. And if I play it, see, this is just a short video of my Wikipedia app. So this is a very convenient tool if you actually want to just record, screen record a bug. So don't use like another device or whatever. You can just use it. You can just use ADB, and it looks much nicer when you actually attach it to the actual bug report. It's just simpler and nicer to watch. You don't have to turn the videos and do anything like this. So that's pretty much it about ADB. I don't know, Max, are there any other questions about ADB, or should we move
on? Let me see. So in our case, we most likely gonna use ADB to install applications, to uninstall applications, to create log file. That's most likely what we're gonna use it for. But it has many more options, and you're welcome to explore them. But for interview purpose, you just need to know how to use the install, uninstall, and create log files. That's what you need. Any other suggestions they need to know besides the video recording and screenshots?
Just look through the file that I attached. There is pull command that can be pretty useful to actually pull the file. And it's right here. Right, and there is the push command. It basically helps you to send a file to a device if you need it. But that's pretty much it. Well, with different options, because this is a common interview questions for manual mobile positions. And everything else, I think you should be pretty much good to go with everything else. Cool. All right, let's move on. And the next thing that we actually wanted to show you guys is, I think I might find this application working here. Let me see. Oops, sorry. Here we go. Okay, so I just used another Android virtual device because the first one was over 10 gigabytes. It was not doing well, so I think it's a little simpler. All right, so let's continue. Our next topic is actually Charles Proxy, which is a tool that you might face, might not, but we wanted to include it because I think it'd be nice for you to actually know what it is and what people can use it for.
It's actually very, very good for interview questions because they like to see it in your resume, and it's a very popular tool, and they can ask you very general questions of how you were using it, and that's why we want to show you that. You may, most likely you won't have to use it never in your life. We want it for you to know for passing the interview. So please, if you feel stressed out and you don't understand anything about it, just try to understand the basics. You won't probably need it.
Yes, very good resume. And also,
I just noticed that many people are very stressed from the material.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit complex and overwhelming, but don't worry. Really, those tools are relatively rare. Okay. Charles proxy is actually a good thing to have on your resume because it sells better. But again, you don't have to put it in there, right? So if you don't feel comfortable, you can actually take it out. But if you can at least explain how you used it, that's actually pretty good. So what Charles proxy is actually doing, Charles proxy is something, is a tool that actually allows you to see everything that is coming. Sorry, let me turn off something. That is coming, like some sort of data that is coming to and from your mobile application, for example, or your web application. So what it actually does, it establishes the connection, and you can connect your device to Charles proxy. So I attached the instructions on how to install Charles proxy and connect it with your Android device to our presentation. By the way, this tool is free, so if you want to try it, you can always do so. So in order to work with this, I basically need to connect my device with my Charles proxy that is running on my machine. I'm going to do it over here. So it just needs to point to the same address. Okay. So I just basically changed the setting of my emulator to point to the address where I have my Charles proxy running. Okay, let me close this. And now when I actually work with my application, what I can do is actually I can see all the traffic that is going through my application by using Charles proxy. So what I just did, I entered Moscow into the search bar for the application. And over here in the Charles proxy, you could see that this line actually appeared, and this line has some information about the weather, right? So what actually happened in here? My application, my visual part of my application doesn't really know what Moscow weather it is right now. So it needs to get this information from its server. So what it's actually doing, it's sending a request to this address, and it's requesting the weather for Moscow. And when it's sending this request, then server basically gets this request and returns the information back for my device. So Charles proxy is something that you could put in the middle, and it can catch everything that my application was sending to its server and display it for me, so I can actually see things. So let's do it one more time. Actually, I'm gonna clean everything in here, so nothing here. Now I'm gonna enter Moscow again. Really? Moscow. Okay. And you can see that this line appears right here. And in here, it's actually trying to get, like, request an information for weather in Moscow. Units metric, basically it wants Celsius. That's what it means. And you can see that server returns back the information with the weather. So you can see the weather information, right? Clear sky, it's right here. Temperature, 13.7, it's right here. And country, RU, right? RU is right here. And obviously the name of the city, which I already know, so it's right here. So why we actually need it and why is this important? Because sometimes we are curious on what information our application is actually requesting from the server and what information server sends back, so we can compare. So let's say we are testing our application and the Moscow weather is actually not 13 Celsius right now, but for example 20, and we enter it over here. We enter Moscow, We choose Moscow, we click OK, and then it displays 20, right? And now there is no way for us to actually understand, is it always displaying 20? Is 20 an actual weather or is it not? So by checking the traffic through Charles Proxy, we can actually see what weather it is actually there on the server side, like on the actual server logic, and compare that weather or whatever is returned matching to whatever is shown over here on our application, right? So basically that would allow us to see more about our application and get more visibility on what data we actually work with. And we can also as well compare other things like clear sky, pressure, and so on and so on and so on. It's important because, let's say, developers would like hard code this, like clear sky, and for every weather in every city, they would display clear sky, right? If you check it in Charles Proxy, you can actually compare, is this what it's supposed to be, or is it showing something weird? So you can select any other city, let's say San Diego, for example. And you can actually see how this thing works in motion. So see, now it actually shows overcast clouds. Let's look in Charles Proxy, and we can actually see that this is correct data right here. So Charles Proxy is basically what people call man in the middle, or it's a tool that can basically catch the communication between your application and its server. So that's why it's called the man in the middle. It's catching everything that your application sends to the server, and the same, like vice versa, it's catching everything that is coming back and is about to be displayed on your application. So it's a very powerful tool. It has many other features, like, for example, it can actually allow you to simulate cases when this data doesn't return back or it's broken and so on. But that is like a little more complex scenarios. You won't really need those. But on a very big level, it really allows you to actually understand what traffic or what server communication your application is making with, and compare, just simply test and analyze. So that's why we use Charles Proxy. Again, this tool is free. It's actually has the free version has 30 minutes trial. So after 30 minutes, if you have a trial version, it will close, but then you can actually reopen it and keep on working with it. So you can just use it as long as you like. Just make sure to remember that it actually, free version actually closes every service 30 minutes. In our presentation right here, we actually have some information how you can configure it, because the configuration for iOS and for Android is a little bit different. So if you really are curious, you can just try following these instructions. Again, this tool is optional, right? It's important that it's not really required. At the same time, it is good to have, and people who have this tool on their resume, they sell better usually. So I would highly recommend you to at least look into that. Okay, that's it about Charles Proxy, and I guess let's move to the next topic. Max, did we have any questions about Charles Proxy, or should I move on?
Suspiciously, they're very silent.
Okay, I hope it was clear. But really, guys, it's relatively simple. Let me close this, and we'll move to our next topic to cover. Cool. So the next topic is actually probably going to be the worst one for today. Let me scare you right away. But this is something you might hear of, but you are very, very unlikely to actually work with. So Jenkins, CI/CD, continuous integration, and what it is. So first of all, Jenkins. Jenkins is basically a tool that many companies use that would allow companies to automate certain jobs. So, for example, let's say I am a developer, and every time I work with my code, I need to build my app, right? The same way we did it, go build my APK file. Then I need to distribute it, so give it to my QA engineers or to other developers or to product managers, whoever needs it. So they will run some sort of tests on it or verify something. Then I have another version of my code, and then I have to do the same thing all over again and all over again. Nobody really wants to do it manually, right? It's time consuming, it takes time. So in order to avoid things like this, people actually very often use a tool that is called Jenkins. And Jenkins will basically replace these manual jobs with something that is automated. So in lieu of our Android application, what Jenkins will do for a developer, it will actually go to the code repository where this code is stored, like code source is stored. It will take this code and it will actually automatically do this build APK, and it will basically store this APK somewhere inside Jenkins. So then whoever needs it can actually can actually open Jenkins and download the APK file from there. So that way, let's say you need to get an APK file. In order to do so, you just open some sort of URL that your development team will give you. And just download the file from there and use it for testing. So that is not the only thing that Jenkins allows us to do. Jenkins also allows us to automate many other things. Like, let's say if you have test automation where automatic tests are running, you can also set up jobs. So let's say, don't want to manually launch my tests, automated tests, every day or every night. I can have Jenkins doing it on a certain basis. So Jenkins basically is a nice tool that actually allows me to automate these jobs. Moreover, if we're talking about like more complex systems, Jenkins can actually automate the whole process of the development for you. So let's say somebody wrote a code for application, they then deploy this code, and then they run tests automatically. All that can be done through Jenkins. So let me show you this schema, and let's see, and talk a little bit more about it. So basically, the processes over here is that developers, they create the code, they put it in some sort of code repository, let's say they use Git or whatever. So then just takes this code, and then it actually sends it down the pipeline, right? So they call it pipeline. That's how it is displayed. But the first thing that is going to happen, this code is actually going to be pulled. Then the actual application or file will be built, right? Then test cases will be executed. It doesn't always mean some sort of, like at this stage, it doesn't always mean here's going to be like just a QA execution. It can be that over here it's actually running some unit tests, like the tests that only developers use. It also over here can be running our test automation using, let's say, Selenium or something like this. And at the same time over here there can be somebody else who actually verifying this build. Then if everything is fine over here, everything is passing, your like automated stuff is passing. This code is actually gets into a certain environment, so let's say staging environment, or QA environment, doesn't really matter. And then basically this code or this version of your application gets basically accessible by everyone. So basically Jenkins allows us to build all these pipelines and automate all these jobs in order to actually speed up the process, right? So because there can be multiple developers that actually communicate over here, just automation of this job makes it really, really faster, right? And then over here, when we get this build, we know that it already passed all the stages, including like running some sort of internal tests, and we can actually work with this, and we can test it and do whatever, sign off, and then eventually at some point the application will make it to production, and Jenkins can also allow you to deploy to production. So if we're talking about CI is actually continuous integration. That's the process where all these jobs are automated, partially usually, or independently automated. And it's like, that's basically the meaning, continuous integration. They work one after another, right? If we get to like, let's say QA point or something over here, can be any point of here, at some point the job will stop, and then we will require some like manual verification or some manual checks, and then after basically everything is signed off, people like it, build is good, we then manually, or the same using Jenkins, we then push it to production. So that's basically CI, like bunch of jobs, most of them are automated, and that's how the things work. So CD is a continuous delivery, which is a little more complex. CD basically means that this whole process is automated, like all of it. So basically, if you have a CD pipeline, what it means is that usually here people will just make the code, it automatically will generate the build, it will automatically run through unit tests and so on, it will automatically be deployed into QA. Over there, it will automatically run test automation jobs, and everything is also automatic, and then it will automatically deploy straight to production. So very often it will won't even require like any manual interactions, so like manual people won't be even here, right? So if we talking about CD and CD based development, very often we can see that usually builds go to production like very often. It can be twice a week, it can be once a week, but very, very often. And there is no like a very committed stage for, let's say, testing. If you're talking about CI, parts of those jobs are automated, and we usually have like a team of manual QA engineers that need to sign off, or product that needs to sign off. Then after they verified everything, they say, okay, this build is good, and then the build goes to production. So things like this. I actually included some links for you to actually look and watch. There is a video about Jenkins and how the whole system actually works together. I would recommend you to watch that, because my like 15-minute overview is a little bit short and can be overwhelming. But at this video, if you watch it at home, you'll see a very, very good explanation of like each particular stage over here, and how it's done, and how it's automated, so you will have a better understanding. This video is for about an hour, just so you know. And Wikipedia has pretty good information on CD. So basically, you can use it as well.
I'm sorry, Lana, quick question. Do you think that our guys that gonna apply right now to manual testing, they need to watch an hour of Jenkins? Or you think they should do it later on once they start the job?
Good question. Good question. I'd say maybe not right now, actually, especially if you just learning it. Maybe after the some sort of internship, if you guys have it, or maybe some sort of first like job search stages. If you are asked questions about Jenkins, or if you see that it's being asked in the market, look at it. But right now, especially if we have like a very, very short period, probably don't spend much time. I guess just overall understanding on how it works should cover it all. Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Let me quickly show you one tiny little thing. I also actually got, I think, one question. Are we going to be asked about Jenkins on the interviews? It really depends on the company that is hiring you. Like, if there is a company that is hiring you and that is actively using Jenkins, they might. At the same time, nobody really expects you to know how Jenkins and builds work if you're applying for a manual QA engineer position. Like, it's just not the requirements. They might be interested in asking you, like, have you worked with Jenkins? But you know, you can always say no, but I'd like to learn it. Okay, so let me show you one quick thing. Actually, before...
a quick question about Jenkins. I remember that I used it maybe for like 1 year, like 5-6 years ago. And I was mainly using it to build the QA environment. So basically we had web testing and we had the production, and we as QA people had to test the version on QA environment, which was created for us in order to be tested. So each time that it had like certain code was getting into this branch of QA, we had few different branches like QA1, QA2, QA3. Each QA had its own branch. So whenever developer fixed something, it told us, "Oh, hey guys, I put the fixes on, let's say, QA2. So just build QA2 again." And we were going to this Jenkins, we were clicking QA2, clicking another button, I don't remember which, and it was basically building it with the new updated code. And after like few minutes, I don't remember how long it was. Actually, it's a good question. And during the interview, they asked how long it was building, for example. It was creating the new code, and I could test the fix, the bug fix, and so forth. So the question, can you share a few words about this process?
Yeah, sure. So let me actually show you just a small screenshot. I can't really show you my Jenkins, so I try to hide as much as I can. This is how actually my Jenkins work that I use all the time. This is how it's going to look inside. It's going to be something similar. So if you need, let's say, to build a new application, or in Max's case, to build a new environment, right, which is also possible. All you need to do is...
Just a reminder, guys, we are not testing production environment. We need to test our internal environments before it goes to production.
Yes. Please don't test in production unless you're asked. When you go to Jenkins, you'll basically see the list of jobs. It will look like this, something similar to this. And then you will need to select a certain job. Let's say you want to build a new version of your Android application. So this is this guy right here, build Android APK. And in my case, I would just hit this button that is play. And after it's done, I can open this folder. It's actually a folder right here. And over there, I'm actually going to see this APK file. So it's literally going to look the same way that I see when I build on my Android Studio, right? It's basically going to be like a folder where I can go and locate, and it's going to be like having this outputs, APK, debug, app debug APK. Some people will actually even improve Jenkins job, so you will just see this file right there, so you won't even need to open these folders. So that's regarding like how we build a new application, version of application, right? The similar way, if you have an ability to build a certain version of your environment, it's going to be something similar, a job that will look like this. You'll need to hit play, and then ideally your environment will be built if by building the environment, we talked about something that is backend related. You ideally should be able to just open web page and see the new environment right there, to interact with this, to test it, and to basically verify certain things.
Lana, how long it takes to build it, it really depends on the size of the application.
Yeah, and was just about to say that. And the thing that the building time really depends on many things, actually. So for applications like, let's say, Android, it can be around 2 minutes, can be a little longer, up to 5 minutes. It's fine. It can be shorter, can be a few seconds. It really depends on the size of the application. It really depends on is it Java or Kotlin, like programming language? Is it how many files are there? How good are they compiling together? So things like this. Size is significant, yeah. If it's long, if it also is not very well written, it's probably going to take a longer time. But if it's a small application like the one that I showed you, this that we were building today, this weather app, it's short, right? I think I ran it a couple of times. Let me see, actually. So in my case, it's less than a minute. If the application is very simple, it's really going to be simple. If we're talking about environments, like building the whole environment, it really depends on what is actually being built in there. If it's like some sort of a backend code with like server logic, and there are a lot of moving components, I know for my current company, it actually takes up to 15 minutes, which is crazy slow. But usually it can be made faster. Mm-hmm. But it really depends on the company and its code. I would say, if you say that it takes about a couple minutes to actually build an Android application, that's good enough. That's close enough. Another thing that I should actually mention over here, when your application is building, let's go back here, actually. When your application is building, if it's just building application, so if it's just building here, and then you have access to that and you can then like test and do whatever, it's one time. It's like, let's say 2 minutes. But if your Android developers have some sort of Android unit tests, those are like tests that are created by developers for your application, and they actually have a job that would build and then run their tests first before giving it to you, then it'll probably be longer. It depends on the amount of tests and which tests they have, but it can take like, let's say, same 2 minutes application, like 2 minutes to build, maybe 3 minutes to run tests. Very valid, maybe 10 minutes to run tests. It really depends on the tests. So don't be surprised if you're at work and it's like building for 15 minutes. Maybe it's actually also running tests. You can see. But if you're curious, actually, and if you will have access to this, you'll be able to see it in Jenkins.
Can you share a few words about the staging? Because we understand that commit is basically the code the developer makes. Mm-hmm. Then we build it. Then we test it. Mm-hmm. Then it comes to staging after we test it. Goes to deploy?
Yeah, so this is just like, I guess, for demo reasons. It's really depends on the company and how they call their environments. Some companies, they call this environment that is before QA, they call it stage. So it's stage, then they have QA, and then they have production. Some people call it dev. So over here, it's actually building. It deploys to dev environment, so it's called development environment. Then over here, they have QA, and then they have production, or they have something that they call stage or pre-production, then production, just the name of the environment.
So the only place that it's actually important for us is the QA one.
The only place that's important for us is a QA one, yes, usually, unless developers specifically ask you like, hey, can you actually go to development or stage environment and verify something? Again, this process, like this whole pipeline, is not always like automated. What's possible happening here is that they will build in stage, and they will, like, let's say we have stage and dev and then stage, QA, and then production. What's possible, they will build it up to stage, and then they can like go manually verify some things, or they can ask you to go manually verify some things. If everything is fine, they will hit play button again, and it will go to QA. So this process is not always like this. It really depends on how it's built. So don't be surprised, right? If they can, if they ask you to verify something in a different.
Lana, can you please, in a very simple way, explain us? For example, if they're going to be asked during the interview, how did you guys build your QA environment, or how did you create your QA environment? Can you explain it in like very simple way of how we should explain that?
Yeah, if you have access to Jenkins, where you actually have a job that's something like here says like build QA environment, all you need to do is just open Jenkins and hit play button. Wait until this job finishes. It usually like has like this bar that is like executing for some time, and then you can just actually go to your actual QA environment, like open it on where you at your like web page or whatever, and can start working with this. That's like the very, very simple way.
So usually they're gonna have a lot of different QA environments because there are, let's say, 5 different QA people and 5 different developers working on fixing 5 different things. Are they going to use same QA environment, or are they going to split it to different?
In my company, we use the same one. It's possible that they can split it into different ones, especially if the companies are big. So
for interview, it's enough to say we had just one QA environment.
Absolutely fine, yes. In fact, it's probably the more common case than have many. Just basically, the main point here is sound confident.
I see. Awesome.
All right. I don't have much to add about Jenkins. And do we have any more questions about actually
did you receive in your private chat? Because I don't see any right now.
Let's see. I got a few questions during the lecture itself that I basically covered. Let me see. How did you stop the log? I think I said it. Okay. There was one question that I missed. Should we write time of crash somewhere in the sticker? I'm not actually sure what exactly. I think Vyacheslav means bug report. If you have a crash on your device, by just grabbing logs, and I would recommend you to grab the logs, you basically will get a timestamp right there, so you don't really necessarily have to attach it. At the same time, if you are not attaching the logs, if you just had a crash, and if you can like repetitively make a video, reproduce it, just attach that. you can mention the time. That way, if the company has some sort of other system like Crashlytics or whatever in place, where they also track crashes, they can find it there better. Usually, the more information that you can provide about a certain behavior, the better and the easier it is for the debugging. But do you have to do so? No, you don't have to do so. It's not necessary. You can omit this information. But if you're nice, you might as well include it. Okay. Let's see. What else? What else? What else? What else? Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, and we covered the rest. Are we going to ask about Jenkins? Yeah, I think we covered that as well. So, yeah.
I just want to remind everyone, guys, it was only an introduction. It was a very high level to get familiar with the general concept, with the terminology, with knowing that those stuff exist. Some of you will never see it again. Some of you might need it for the interview. Some of you might be being asked at work to use it. But before using it, your company, your team, gonna show you exactly what to click, how to use it, because in different companies they have different procedures and they have different ways of handling it. So you just want to be familiar that such tool exists, that's what he does, and once you gonna be instructed and shown how to do certain thing, you won't be shocked.
Yeah, don't be afraid. Really, there are usually a certain time for onboarding in any company where you get hired, where they also explain you what tools they work with and how to use them. So it's important to just understand what they are talking about. Interesting, my Android Studio won't behave. It's important to actually have an understanding on what it is, where I can go. Like, hey, he asked me to verify something on API 28. What is this? It's actually not that hard, but the terminology at first can be just like a little bit scary, or can be a little bit overwhelming. So just cover the main topics where you can look at some things. You don't you need to look for logs. Which command can you possibly use? So things like.
By the way, Lana, can you show, if possible, really quick on Android Studio, where is the place where you can actually see the logs in Android Studio, in case that you know?
I'm not sure I know, actually.
Okay. We just should use the ADB lookup.
I don't know, Max, if you ever used it. I
actually never did, and that's why I asked. But if you never used it and I never used it, I think they should just know the ADB command.
Yep. And just a quick demo, guys. This is how the crash look. So if you are trying to open the app and it's doing something like this, this is a crash. I'm not sure if any of you guys have seen it before, but
thank you so much. It's actually very precious.
I like breaking things. Okay, so yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Lana, very much for today's class, and I can take it from here. We still have a few minutes. And I have a few things that I want to share with them. So, Lana, thank you so much for the class, and we hope to see you really soon.
Very cool. Thank you for having me. Good luck, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, let me just take over the screen. Yay! So, guys, first of all, relax. Second of all, as I mentioned, most of you won't need it at all. Few of you might need it, That's why we want to prepare you to be aware of those tools, to be aware of those names, to be aware how it looks like and what it's supposed to do, okay? The purpose of it. I'm not familiar with Jenkins, okay? I used it just clicking 2 buttons and creating the QA environment. That's what most likely you might use it for. I used it in one company out of 6 for 1 year out of 6 years, okay? So you don't most likely won't need it too much. But we still want you after our course to be familiar with the most popular tools that are there on the market, and that's what we're doing. If you felt that the video today, I'm sorry, that the class today was a little bit fast, it's okay. You still have the recording. You can watch it again. You can pause. You can go back and go forward, okay? I really highly recommend to watch it again, just to get familiar, to understand the basics of what we showed you. If you still want to explore more, you're more than welcome to go to YouTube and write the name of this program, for example, Charles Proxy, or for example, Jenkins, and watch tutorial for beginners of 10, 15, 20 minutes, okay? It will definitely maybe explain you even better than us. So it's just tools that you want to get familiar with on a very, very, very high level without diving into the details, okay? By the way, I believe today was the most complicated class that we have, because the rest is gonna be easy peasy. It just was very, very much introduction. So if you're stressed, don't be stressed, relax. It's gonna be super easy like we promised. If you feel that you're like trying to understand it and it's hard, but you still want to understand it, but it's still hard, just stop. You don't need to understand it, okay? Don't waste your time and don't focus on things that you don't need. The only thing you need from the last 2 lessons is how to install the application, Android and iOS, and how to create log files on Android and iOS. That's all. Okay? The rest is good. Good to understand, good to hear, good to read over about it, good to watch a tutorial about it, but it's not something that you need to focus your effort and your time on. And I want you to understand that, because sometimes I say something and people don't really listen to it, and then they get into trouble. So don't get into trouble, just follow us, listen to what we say, and you're gonna be all right. Let's see. Guys, do you have any more questions? Installing application, uninstalling application, creating log file on iOS and Android. That's it. Very simple, few clicks away. On the first time you're doing it, or you're seeing it, it looks weird. After you watch it 2 or 3 times, you will see that it's a joke, okay? For those skills, you're going to get paid $40 plus, $45, $50, $55 per hour, okay? So I promise you that working in a post office or in a supermarket is 20 times more complicated. Trust me, I went yesterday to send like a letter. It was so complicating for me. I was very overcomplicated, okay? So, and I realized that the job that they're doing is like 2,000 times more complicated than a QA engineer job for manual testers. So please be aware of it. And once you feel that something is very complicated, you don't need it. because this job is easy and you don't need nothing complicated. For installing application, uninstalling application, creating the log files, you just need to click 3 buttons. And we showed you which. You just need to repeat it. Okay? Once you repeat it a few times, you will see that it's a joke. Awesome. It looks like everybody's in shock. So I hope that you enjoyed the class today. We always love to receive feedback because we always improve and we always try to make our classes better and better. But today's class was very, very much introduction. You need to understand that I understand that for some of you it seemed like strange and complicated, but it was introduction. Okay, it was just to see different tools, to see how they're called, and to see what we use them for. That's it. Okay. Whenever I asked if everything was clear and fine, I see you guys are very silent, so I'm not sure what it means. But anyway, I know it's very late right now in the East Coast. Don't worry, we are going to get back to our bug reports. We are going to go one by one. We're gonna go through the desktop and the mobile bug reports, and I'm gonna tell you my feedback. I'm gonna tell you what is missing, how it's supposed to be, how we need to improve it, and how we need to create perfect bug reports. Regarding SQL, guys, we're gonna have a lecture about SQL soon, so don't rush, don't rush. We're gonna teach you, and then we can talk about it. Okay? Yes, I know it was a lot of information today. I want you to know that in the next classes, it won't be so much information. Okay? It was just today serious introductions of many different tools, because Lana, she's a real pro, and we wanted her to share her experience with you, her knowledge with you. I know that she's very fast, and she just really wanted to show you all the tools that she promised. And it's okay, we have a recording. We always can pause, we can look one more time, we can listen one more time, we can watch tutorial, okay? Once you see that it doesn't make sense to you after watching it 2 times, ask me. If still you feel that you're not sure what it means, just leave it, just forget it and focus on the rest, okay? So guys, really soon I'm gonna share with you the questions and answers for the interview, because I want you to start going through it, getting familiar with it, and repeating it, you know, once you have free time, because that's the holy grail in order to get the job, the answers to the questions, and you are going to be familiar with them really soon. Okay? So guys, thank you so much for being with us. I know it's late now, right now on the East Coast, so thank you so much. Have a good night and see you tomorrow. We're gonna dive soon into much easier stuff. So see you tomorrow, guys. Bye-bye.